This week we have been talking about conflict in the workplace, and we have talked about how conflicts develop as well. Well, I did say from the onset that it may not be a very bad thing in itself because sometimes it helps us to build better and more long-lasting relationships, helps the HR also come up with greater policies for the future. But no matter how well we talk about it and how much we prepare for it, most times when we are in the space of conflict, we realize that we are not as ready as we thought that we would be. It just has a way of getting to us. And so, having talked about how conflicts do develop, today I want to talk about how different people cope with conflict. This is Wisdom Moments on K24 with me, CJ Atemo. Hope that you have subscribed to my YouTube channel as well, CJ Atemo. CJ Atemo on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and also connect with me on LinkedIn. It's CJ Atemo everywhere. With my YouTube channel, remember to subscribe, set the notifications for the videos, watch, like, leave a comment, share, and just help us put out the positive content out over there and let it build somebody else. And we would be so glad. I'd also want to hear your feedback. So if you want to reach out to me, use the DM, use the inbox, or cjatsol@gmail.com for questions. If you need clarifications, if you have certain topics, something that you would want me to address on Wisdom Moments and K24, go ahead and let me know. And I will do my best as soon as I possibly can to address it. So I want to talk about how different people cope with conflict. Not everybody is wired, or rather not everybody has trained themselves to deal with conflict. Whether it is in the family setup or anywhere else, there are people who, different people will have different responses to conflict. Remember, we talked about conflict is when two or more people or two or more organizations, teams, or even countries go against each other. And some people do not like it when everybody goes against each other. Some people thrive on it. Some people, there are all kinds of stuff that come up in people when they're in the conflict zone. So there are those people. The first group are the people who cannot cope at all. They just cannot cope with conflict at all. Whenever I talk about relationships and people talk about love languages, I also ask, do you know the language of conflict of your partner, your husband, your wife, or even your children? Now, this is what they carry into the workspace. There are people who just do not know how to cope. They cannot cope. So anytime there's a conflict, they run. They've been running right from the point when they were in their homes, when they were kids. Anytime their fathers or their mothers would be having issues, they would just run. They would run to their uncles, they would run to their grandmothers, they would go and hide elsewhere, they would hide among their friends. That is their coping mechanism. When you bring them into the workspace, anything that triggers those emotions will also trigger the same reaction. When they see the stimulus, they will have the same response to that stimulus, and that is they just run. So there are people who will quit the job because they feel there was a conflict. There are people who will leave an organization. There are people who will stay away from work for 2 to 3 days because they just don't know how to be in that particular space. They're not trying to be mean. They're not trying to be rude. They're not trying to undermine anybody, but this is what they have been doing. They cannot cope, and so they run. When you discover that somebody runs from conflict, you probably then need to help them how to handle conflict without running. The reason is that every time you run away from a conflict situation, you miss the opportunity to solve something, and number two, to grow in a certain way. So it means that you carry what might be even a childhood trauma into your old age, and you never really get to deal with it because you always keep running. Nothing is solved by those who run away from it. Sometimes you just have to face the elephant in the room and begin to deal with it. It will be uncomfortable. It will be strenuous to you in the first days and something, but you owe it to yourself for personal growth to learn how to handle conflict in a healthy manner. Running is not a healthy way of handling conflict. Running is not a healthy way of handling conflict because, as I said, number one, the issue has not been sorted out. And number two, you have not grown as a person. In fact, you have not confronted the things that are within you that makes you run. The second kind of people are those who want peace at all cost. They don't run, but they will do everything to make sure everybody is happy with everybody. The danger of this particular kind of group is that even when they are the ones who are at a point of disadvantage, they will take in all form of abuse, all manner of abuse. They will apologize when they are not wrong. They will always go out of their way to make everybody else happy so that people are at peace. So they will take responsibility for things that they have not done. They will cover up for other people. They will try to unite people who are not even trying to work together at all because they just want peace. And because of this, sometimes then they will sweep things under the carpet. They just want people to wake up and not have the issue. So if there's money that is missing, they will put in the money and say, okay, here's the money, so let's keep on working. If there's something that is needed, they will provide it just to make sure that people are not fighting around it. But you see, the truth is you can't keep on doing that. It is not sustainable. You will never have enough resource. You'll never have enough time. If people are fighting over who needs to work and stay over for the overtime, and then they will offer themselves and say, okay, I'll do it, just so that there's peace in this place. See, you cannot be all that. You cannot do everything. You cannot be everything. You cannot be everywhere. Eventually, somewhere along the line, productivity will be compromised. You will not be doing well emotionally and mentally. You want to do certain things well as well because you have been stretched as well. So it is not sustainable. It is important that even as we seek peace, that we address the issues that have brought the conflict. We did talk about how conflicts do develop. And so some of those things would be things that you need to address. Sit around the table. Let's have respect. Not just seeking peace by throwing things or pushing them under the carpet. Let's have respect, but let's have conversations. Let's have conversations around the issues that we have without anybody insulting anybody, disrespecting anybody, undermining anybody, but let's have the conversations. Those who seek peace at all cost will not look for a solution. Then there are those who thrive in conflict. There's that group that thrives in conflict. These are the people who love to see everybody unsettled. They just love it when people are unsettled, and so they seem to be in charge. They love the fact that they pull the strings and everybody is dancing to their tune. They want to be in charge. They just want to see things go their way. And so anytime there is peace, there's harmony in that space, they will create some trouble because they need to see people fighting. That's when they are needed. They need to see people not working together or getting along because that's when they're needed. They're just people who thrive in conflict. They find relevance and value when people are not together. They may seem like they're diplomats, but actually they are feeding on the dysfunction of other people. So whenever there are no conflicts in the space, they find no work to do because nobody's coming to them to seek advice. Nobody's coming to them to seek reconciliation with somebody else, and they are jobless. They have no relevance, no value. Sometimes they do that because they get certain personal favors just by being in those kind of spaces. When people think, I can talk to you, at least you will understand me. When I go talk to Susan, Susan won't understand me. And so they thrive in those conflicts because then they are needed. Sometimes what people do not know is that those are the people that actually fuel the conflict even the more because they're just thinking about having things going their way. Well, that's the time that I've had today on Wisdom Moments on K24. This week, we're talking about conflict in the workplace, and we have just talked about how different people cope with conflict. Till tomorrow, let's see you right here, same time.